Hello everyone, I am Movie Master, and welcome to the Master Reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing a little film that I don't think too many people know about. A movie called Spymaker, The Secret Life of Ian Fleming. Now, you may be asking, why am I reviewing this film? Well, in November we're getting the newest James Bond film, Spectre, and I thought it'd be really appropriate to go back to a film about the man who eventually created the character of James Bond. Without Ian Fleming, no James Bond. Spymaker was a TV movie released in 1990 for TNT, and it tells the story of young Ian Fleming, growing up in London in an aristocratic family, and we see him in adventures, we see him in espionage, aiding the government, running away from Russian spies. Very much what you would see in a typical James Bond film. The film stars Jason Connery in the role of Ian Fleming, and if the name Jason Connery sounds a little familiar, that's because he is the son of Sean Connery, the man who played James Bond. This guy. James Bond. James Bond. For the most part, Jason Connery does a pretty good job in the role of Ian Fleming, even though he looks nothing like him. And I think what makes him work in this film is the fact that he's a good actor, even though in certain scenes he's a little wooden. I remember when I first saw this film back in the 90s, I actually thought he would have been a good contender for playing James Bond. But upon rewatching this film again, I can tell that this guy would not have been a good contender for James Bond. Even though he looks just like Sean Connery, except that he's blonde, he is missing a little bit of what would make him the perfect candidate for James Bond. For Ian Fleming, it works because we're seeing him in World War II. It's still kind of grounded to reality, even though this film is very fictionalized. The movie also stars Kristen Scott Thomas, who you may know from The English Patient. She's magnificent in this film. I think she's one of the best parts of this film. She's very believable as the interest of Ian Fleming, and also as someone who works for the British government. This movie also has a cameo by Fiona Fullerton, who you may know from A View to a Kill. In that film, she plays a Russian spy, and in this film, she plays a woman that Ian beds. Ian sleeps with a lot of women in this film, and I'm not sure if that's supposed to be accurate, or if that's a nod to the James Bond character he eventually created. Which begs me to add that this movie feels very much like a James Bond movie, which I praise to a certain extent, but being that this is supposed to be a story about the man who created James Bond, it feels very fictionalized. Because I have a hard time believing some of the things that happen in this film. And while Ian Fleming was actually a naval officer, he actually was a lieutenant of the Naval Intelligence Division, I think it was very different to what was portrayed in this movie. A lot of the times when I'm watching this film, it really feels like I'm watching James Bond and I'm not watching Ian Fleming. And yes, Ian Fleming did create James Bond. James Bond was supposed to be an exaggerated version of Ian Fleming. It was the fantasy of what he wanted to be. So in many ways, I was hoping this film to be a little bit more grounded to reality, and in certain areas it is, but in a lot of areas they take a lot of liberty on the character. Of course, if this film was 100% factual, it wouldn't have been as exciting. You know, imagine watching Titanic and just being a story about a ship, you know, sinking for an hour and a half or 2 hours. It would be very boring. You have to add drama, you have to add certain things that may or may not have happened. And that's the same thing with Spymaker. You know, they took a lot of liberty with the character of Ian Fleming, but it is still a very enjoyable movie that I highly recommend. So overall, I enjoyed Spymaker. It's a nice little film. I definitely recommend it. I give this film an 85%. As for the DVD, this is the first time the movie has ever been available in this format, and it's honestly very disappointing because the quality is not much different to the VHS. I owned the VHS for several years, and comparing and contrast, it's not much of a difference, and there are no special features. So, it's only the movie, but, you know, as I said, it's a great movie that I highly recommend. If you like spy films, if you like James Bond, you will enjoy Spymaker. Also, I actually bought this little magazine that was released last week. It's called The Best of Bond, and it talks about all of the Bond films, all of the Bond actors, and it also mentions a little sneak peek on the film Spectre. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe. I'm going to be reviewing later, tomorrow, another movie that resembles a little bit to James Bond. It was actually a film with Neil Connery, the brother of Sean Connery, and that movie is OK Connery, also known as Operation Kid Brother, and it's a spoof of the James Bond genre. So stay tuned for that review, and until next time, bye.